Welcome back to my battery bombed LC2 series. This is going to be part 3. In today's video, we'll be working mostly on cosmetic restoration of the LC2. Power supply, metal components, things like that. So I hope you enjoy a little bit less electronics work today, but a little more just general restoration work. Alright, so I've got the shell of my power supply out here. As you can see, it's quite rusty. This piece as well. So the first thing we got to do before we can reassemble is get all this rust off. What I like to do is use a drill with some wire brushes. They do a pretty good job of taking that rust layer off. And I got a bunch of different sizes here. I got this at Harbor Freight. Probably like a couple bucks because it's Harbor Freight. So start with this size, and just get in there and start taking this stuff off. And as you can see, it goes pretty quickly, but we got a lot of work to do on this one. I'll say I'm making good progress here. Then I'm going to switch to the smaller brush here for some of the detail work. Alright, so again, I don't know how well you can see that due to the extremely bright backlighting, but making a lot of good progress on it. A little bit more to go here. Alright, so I think that's about as good as we're going to get this one. The inside's looking pretty good there. The backside's looking, better. I think a lot of that's interior. And there's a second step to this, so we'll get to that in a second. Let's clean up the other half of this. Alright, so that came out pretty good as well. Alright, so I want to bend this stuff back as much as possible before I go on to the next step. Alright, so what I use next then is this rust reformer. So this converts the rust into, not rust, I don't know what it converts it to, but prevents further rust from happening. So I'll give this a shake, and then we'll spray the areas that have been affected by this. Both the rust and the wire brushes. All right, so I'm just gonna hit the areas that have been affected with this stuff. So make sure to get in all the little gaps and holes. All right, so it looks about like that, so you can see it. All right, so I'm going to set this down to dry. I guess I'll shake the excess off a little bit. And we'll do the same for this one. All right, that should be good. So in the past, I've done this for some other things. Like I did an SE 30, no, an SE, I think it was an SE30, the internal metal chassis, and I ended up painting the whole thing black just because I thought it looked cooler. But you certainly don't need to. The unaffected areas are fine to not be covered up. So, all right, I want to let this stuff dry. Should take, I think 24 hours to fully cure. I think it says. Yeah, 24 hours. All right, so I've got all my pieces back here on the table, on the workbench. So now we just need to reassemble. So these CDK power supplies have two plastic inserts that kind of protect the power supply from, I don't know what I suppose, moving too much. They both kind of have guides for this large capacitor here. One comes up through the bottom here, and then there's one here that sits on the top. So these go in, and this all goes in here together. I do need to resolder the ground pin. I never did end up getting the screw out, but I did manage to scrape away some of the rust converter and paint to expose the copper, so I'm just going to try to resolder onto there. So that should be okay. I'm not sure this wire is long enough. We can attach a new wire, I think, if we need to. No problem there. And yeah, these turned out pretty good. I mean, there's still battle scars on here, but hopefully the rust will stop. I did get some drips on the inside, but that's okay, no big deal. And of course, I did paint over the label here a little bit, but again, no problem. You can still see that it's a TDK power supply. So we'll know in the future, in another 30 years when we have to recap it again, what brand it is, so we use the right components. All right, so first thing I need to do is to get the switch and the power supply back in here. I'm going to make sure I put this in correctly. So this sits on top here, like that. This sits, does this sit here? Yeah, and this is sandwiched between, okay. So let's get this bottom piece on and drop this in here. Looks good. So then we can worry about getting the switch. Yeah, I think I'm going to need to add some wire to this. Let me do that while I have it apart. That'll make things a little easier. So first we'll desolder this existing wire. Or attempt to anyway. So we can just end up cutting it off. There it goes. Now it might be wrapped around. We might have to actually desolder it. So I'm just going to cut that off. No problem. So now I do need to find a wire to replace that. So for that I'm going to use some speaker wire, some copper speaker wire. Alright, that is on there. Good connection, nice and solid. Yeah, alright, cool. So the next step then is to the next step then is to get these back installed into the housing here. So let's see if there's an easy way to do that. Now, it would help if I did this the right way. This needs to be facing out. Not to have to mangle this any more than I've already mangled it, but we'll just do that a little bit. So that's that, and the switch. We'll just bend that back. And this is probably easier to do if I had to put this in here first. Let's get these reinserted. All right, we got that. Of course, my new ground wire is stuck underneath. bend these back just a little bit. Alright, now hopefully when the top goes down on top of that, that should keep things a little better shape. So now I want to connect this to here for grounding. Look at the solder that I just put away. Let's tune that up a little bit. And I'll tin up the receiving side. All right, seems like a good solid connection. I believe this would flop over into the bottom. I can't quite remember how this goes. I think this is sandwiched in between here. Yeah, like that. So we need to put the top protective plastic on first. Okay, so this black plastic piece fits on top here, like that. And then we need to get this back on. Now some of this stuff is still bent out of shape. I'm not sure that it's going to be an easy job to get this stuff all together, but we will give it our best shot here. So this is supposed to go clip into here and here, and then slide down on top of everything. This is going to sandwich the boards, or sandwich the board between the two halves of the case. That didn't quite line up right in the back. This tab should be on the outside, but I think that's going to be okay. Oh, except these front parts came out. Maybe I can squish them in there. Yeah, that's good enough. Alright, so let's get these screws back in. I think I'll just do a quick continuity check on it since, you know, why not? Just ensure safety here. So we'll touch ground. Definitely grounded. And nothing from either hot or neutral. So we shouldn't have any sort of fireworks when we plug this in. Speaking of plugging it in, let's do that now. Alright. So I'll switch it to the on position. I'll plug it in. And nothing exploded. So that's a really good sign. So the next thing we want to do is apply power to our board and make sure everything's working. Yep, and we've got the full complement of 10 megabytes of RAM. So let's just shut it down. All right, so now we have one final thing to do for the restoration here. We need to get a case cleaned up for this machine. Now, since this is from two machines, we have some choices here. Neither of them are especially good choices, but they are choices. So this one, I think, is going to be easier. Obviously, it's got a bunch of rust here. I don't know if you can quite see it, but there's really bad rust here. And of course, this one has rust in the same spot as well, but far worse. Overall, far worse. I think, you know, this is worse in this localized area, but this whole section here is rusty on this one. So I think this one is out. So we'll get rid of this one, at least for this project. Not get rid of as in e-waste. I mean, a case is a case, not just going to throw it out. So we got this. So what I want to do is some of the rust converter again on this. Now the only problem with getting these off is they're held in place by melted plastic. So Apple just injection molded the case with little pegs, put the metal on top, and then melted the pegs down to hold the things in place. They've done that for a number of their machines, not just the LCs. I know 6100s are the same way. I'm sure there are others as well. So we can either cut those off and figure out how to get it back on later, or try to melt them with the soldering iron and make everything stink. I'm of the mind to just cut them off, and maybe we can get them to hold on some other way later. I mean, there's these clips here and these things, so there's always options. So I'm just going to snip them all off. Alright, I think we got them all. And again, very much happy that I've had my tetanus shot. Alright, and then the actual plastic itself looks totally fine, so that's no problem there. So I'll take this out to the garage, I'll clean it up a little bit, and then I will hit it with the rust converter, which I still don't know what that converts it to. Something that's not rust, which is good. Alright, so we'll take that up, mess with that later. And now we need a bottom case. And again, we have two options. Perhaps neither of them are good options, but they are options nonetheless. So there's this one here. This is where I was taking the power supplies apart, so this one is not as bad as it appears. There's rust here, there's rust here. This one's actually not in terrible shape. Some rust up front on the plastic as well, but overall not too bad. Take the speaker out. And then let's look at the other one. So then there's this one. So we'll take the things out of here as well since we're here. And a floppy drive, which I've got a feeling probably doesn't work. It does have a disc in it. Interesting. Slide forward. Yes, there's a disc in it. Peanuts disc 4. And this disc itself looks like it's been exposed to elements as well. But maybe just by being in there, it protected the drive somewhat. And I'm not seeing any rust on the drive itself here, which is surprising, to be honest. Well, there's a little bit up here, but maybe it works. We'll have to test that and find out. All right, so these two cases, which is worse? Now this one's got rust here, this one's got rust here, this one has goop running down. That's more goop here. You know, let me clean this extra rust dust off. Alright, so with that being cleaned a little bit, I think that's going to be the winner. So this one, again, we'll just put this one away. We won't recycle it. Keep it maybe some future project. I don't know, can use it for something. We'll put like a micro ITX board in it and make it a modern PC or something. I don't know. I mean, from the outside, the case looks like it's in really good shape. Except for, you know, all the stuff rattling around in it. Alright, so same story with this one. Apple just melted fittings onto this one. On this one, they melted on a whole bunch more, which is awesome. I'll just snip all those off. And of course, there's a whole bunch on the I/O shield on the back. think that's all of them. We'll find out. Hey, we got it off. Oh boy. Oh, there's a lot of gunk in there. So I can clean that out. Also, it's under the shield, so not a huge problem. It's probably going to be stained forever. It's really hard to get some of those stains off of this plastic. But the bottom looks fine, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I'm going to take my two metal pieces here. And this one actually looks like it's okay. I probably didn't have to take this off. Probably would have stayed on okay. Because it goes on top of this. Nope, I did need to take it off. So let me check the other side since there's rust there. Yeah, it needs to be converted as well. Again, converted to what? I don't know. Converted to something. Cool. So I'm going to take this. I'm just going to give it a vinegar rinse. And this I'll get cleaned up. And I will spray with the rust converter where it needs it. Although I think this stuff is aluminum. I don't think it's steel. I guess I don't know. It's light. Feels like aluminum. Cool. So let me take care of this. Let me at least clean these up and see if I need to rust convert them. And then I will be back with you. Alright, so we're back to the sink. So I took some CLR, mixed it with some hot water, and I'm just letting these metal pieces soak here. So I'll probably get the toothbrush back out and give it a scrubby scrub after a few minutes. Now that's my water heater running because, you know, hot water. Alright, so I've got the metal components out here. Gonna hit them with the rust converter. I did a quick magnet test and they are definitely steel. So that's not just surface rust, that's the metal itself rusting. So let me grab the rust converter and we'll give that a shot. Alright, so we got those covered. Now just let them dry and then we'll get everything put back together. Okay, now we're on to cleaning out the bottom case, which has a bunch of this residue in it. Just using some soap and water and of course my electric toothbrush. Feels like it's doing a pretty good job. I take a lot of, I would say elbow grease, but the electric toothbrush is doing most of the work for me, so not too bad there. I'm cleaning it up pretty well. All right, we'll just rinse that off and take a look. Yeah, it's looking pretty. All right, well, I think we've got everything done. It's time to reassemble. Take a look at our work. So as you can see here, I got a lot of the discoloration off. And again, just using soap and water. I also did try a vinegar soak. Did a little, not a ton. And then also tried using a magic eraser. Again, it did some, but it wasn't great. But you know, this is the bottom. No one's gonna see this because it's under the metal shield. But I got a lot of it off, especially where it would be touching the metal. So I think, you know, we'll call it good. Certainly a bunch back here, and I just couldn't really get any tools in there to get anything off. So yeah, the toothbrush seemed to work pretty well with soapy water. So that's what I think I would recommend. All right, and then we've got our treated parts here. If we can remember where these go, we can get things back together. So this one goes here. And so what I did with these was, you know, I tried some CLR on them. I wasn't sure if they were aluminum or steel. I eventually did a magnet test and they are steel. So the CLR took a lot of the rust off, but it also, you know, where the rust was, it just completely made those areas disappear. So once I determined that they were steel, and by disappear I mean it dissolved that, which is fine because it was all rust anyway. Doesn't really affect anything. So we got this bottom plate in, and then this sits here, like so. How does this go on? Like that, I think. Chunk sticking out over here. And there we go. Cool. So, as I'd mentioned, Apple used these little plastic things, the spikes, pegs sticking up. They would put this in, and then they would just melt those to hold it into place. So I snipped all those off. You can melt them off, but I think what I'm going to do, and what I've had luck with in the past, is to, now that everything is going back together, I'm going to try to push down on the metal and see if I can't melt some of this stuff here with my soldering iron so that it will stay attached. I'm just kind of pushing down, and it makes a little divot in there, and it kind of makes a little mound up around the metal. All right, I think that is pretty good. Yeah, so that should just hold it in there, not flopping around at all. So, calling that good to go. All right, so let's begin reassembling things into here. So we'll start with the fan and the speaker. I guess I didn't really test any of this stuff, so I'm not sure which is going to be the best. We'll just go with looks, I guess. These look about the same. Don't have a preference here. We'll use this one. And this is easy enough to replace later if this one ends up being no good. Then we'll pick a fan here. Neither of them seem to be in the greatest of shape, but they both spin pretty nicely. This one's got more rust on it, so let's go with the other one. So we'll clip this guy into place. Alright, looks good. And then next we will do our power supply. So this should just clip down here into place. Even though we really bent the crap out of it, might need to do a little more maintenance on it. Nope, that's just gonna stay in there. Perfect. Got both our clips in. Yeah, that's nice and solid. Next we'll put the logic board back in. So again, these logic boards kind of fit into place and then slide back, and they clip in. And we'll plug in our power supply, plug in our fan, plug in our speaker, and I don't quite remember how this goes, probably like over there or something. We can plug in our floppy drive. Well, first we'll mount our floppy drive. Let's see, it goes in and back and down. This floppy drive is untested. Don't know if it works or not. We'll give it a try though. And then we had 2 hard drives. I think either of these will work. An 80 and an 80. So we've got the Quantum and the IBM. If I was a betting man, which one would I put more confidence in? I have seen a lot of dead Quantums, but IBM, geez, this is a tough call. Let's try the Quantum. This should just clip into here, about like so. We'll plug in SCSI, plug in the power for it. All right, now I've got power cords plugged in. Turn on the monitor, plug in the monitor. I'll leave my speakers unplugged because we want to make sure the speaker here works. Plug in the keyboard, make sure it's off, plug in that power, and let's fire it up and see what happens. Yeah, this fan is not great, and this hard drive, also not happy. It's beeping. Oh, there's rust on the screw here. I didn't even see that. It's trying to spin up, but it's not going to be able to. All right, so let's yank this hard drive out. We don't need it. This one needs to be e-wasted. We'll take this guy out. I'm gonna write bad on it so I don't forget. take the fan out while we're here. See if the other one's going to behave any better for us. Plug this fan in. All right, let's slot this drive in. I see rust on the enclosure, the bracket for it, but not on the drive itself. All right, let's give this a try. Fan, much better. Hard drive, not good. It's trying its best to spin up, but it's not doing anything. All right, here we have a 40 meg quantum drive. Let's see if we're in any better shape with this one. Sounds like it did spin up okay that time, but not showing up. So let's boot off of our external drive here and see if we can see it in the SCSI probe at least, maybe. All right, let's run SCSI probe, see what we see here. Yeah, it doesn't see anything either. So this is actually making me think that there might be some corrosion on the internal SCSI connector because it's right next to where the battery goes. Because the battery obviously was right here, and here's the SCSI connector right next to it. So there certainly could be a problem in there. So I think we'll have to end the video here. Again, trying to keep these a little shorter and not spend an hour and a half on a video. So today we found that we got just about everything done, getting ready to put things back together, and of course there was one final problem with this board. So in the next video we'll be looking at the internal SCSI controller. We do know that the SCSI bus is good because it boots off of the external SCSI port. So hopefully just a little bit more work next time and we'll get things right back together and be good to go with this LC2. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.